This is a fairly interesting topic, which is about turning data into dollars, and how do you use data and analytics for driving growth as well as efficiency improvements. Now, we have always tried to reach that holy grail as data scientists, as data and analytics professionals, that we are not doing this activity only for intellectual stimulation or growth. We are just doing it because it has created sustainable business outcomes and impacts. What I would do is that maybe one good way to start will be to hear from all of us, all of our esteemed panelists, in terms of how they are looking at their own organization and sector in terms of what use cases are being driven for getting the benefits, as well as what has been the journey and the learning going forward. So maybe I'll start from my right itself and from the right, and maybe Pawan will start from you. So from the life insurance perspective, it has always been a very, very heavily data-driven kind of a decision-making industry right from the very beginning. What has changed of late, and how do you see the impact of analytics in driving some of the business outcomes?
Sure. We are living in very interesting time. So if we go back in 2002, it was we have heard the terminology called data is the new fuel for any organization. But that doesn't stand true today. The real-time data is the real fuel for the organization, because we are talking about getting everything on tips. I mean, whenever you click it, you expect to have a data. We heard the previous panel where the BharatPe CTO was talking about the innovation and all. Today, we all experience that as well. Today, if we take an example from our real life, if we are making a payment using one of the app, if it just delayed it by few milliseconds, we just switch to another one and make the payment. At the end of the day, it's about ease. It's about delivering the result. It's about getting the user experience better and then servicing the customer. Similarly, in life insurance as well, data plays a very important role. And most importantly, we deal with critical data. Now, the topic of this particular panel discussion is very interesting. I was just reading it and I was thinking about it. There are billion-dollar cases which are there in the court, and most of the biggest of the companies are fighting about it. You talk about Facebook, you talk about Google, you talk about any other company, $1 million cases are running on them because of this data. The classic example was the Facebook, where they were blamed during the election times. They were blamed that they released or they used certain analytics to motivate, or not motivate, but yeah, to manipulate the experience of users, and then posting certain comments for a particular Congress committee members. So that was there in the news, it's all public, so what I was referring. In life insurance as well, we deal with a lot of data. When I talked about data is about PI data and the SPI data. All data is very important and very prevalent to us, and we have to ensure that we keep it safe. What has changed over a period of time is how we look at the data as well. There was a time where India used to be called vomiting country, because everywhere we go, we are happy to put all the information, all our personal and SPI information, without even asking why they need that particular information and what are they going to do with that particular information. We never used to go back and check what are they doing and whether they have destroyed the data or not. That has changed over a period of time. Today, even we ask for a particular information, we have to give a consent to we have to give a form to the user to consent it out. And you might have seen that while subscribing to certain application, this has changed over a period of time. The important thing which has also, another important thing which has changed is we have to keep the data secure. Now, what data are we securing? We are securing your health information, we are securing your financial information, the PI data, Aadhaar, PAN card, and other related information which are relevant. So they play a very important role while doing the underwriting of a particular policy. This data helps us out in defining the coverage limit, and basis that coverage limit, the policy gets issued to you. Now, these are the very important aspects which needs to be looked at and is helping us driving the business as well. Similarly, from security perspective, it becomes important to secure these data. I'll stop here and then we'll take up questions later.
No, thank you very much. I think Pawan, as you rightly said, data is front and center in terms of how you are defining what an organization would do. And of course, we need to be very careful about the usage of the data, as rightly pointed out by you. Let me switch topics a little bit now from a technology sector perspective, Anup. And we know that it's probably the most fast changing, both from the innovations as well as from the expectation. And also it is probably something which always keeps us on our toes in terms of what is going to be the next from a product development perspective, or even from the way in which new business models have been built. Would be great to hear your perspective, Anup, in terms of how you are seeing analytics helping your journey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I come from a company which basically is in D2C space. We essentially make smart consumer IoT products. So for us, data doesn't only come from consumers, it also comes from hundreds and thousands of devices. And so while we make physical products like cameras, sensors, we're really a data company because our innovation is in data. Of course, there is a part of innovation in the devices and how the devices interact with the consumers. So for us, we use the data we collect for mainly three things. For any D2C company to be successful, its user engagement has to be good, which means that you need to have deep insight into how users are using your touch points. Your touch points are mainly in this era, the websites are mostly gone. So it is mostly your mobile apps. So one key thing, one of the learnings I have, and I think most of the panelists here have, this can't be an afterthought, collection of data. So while you're going about designing your user interface, you know, how the user is going to interact, it's very important that you do the right instrumentation. What is the insight you are trying to get it instrumented correctly. I'll give you one example. We have about a couple of 100,000 customers. So whenever we launch a new product, we don't go online or we don't go to offline channels first. We try these through engagements within our app. So the success metrics for us, whether a product is going to be successful, is a clear indication. How did customers look at our ads? How many website views we had? And these are all our captive customers. If this is going to succeed, we are very sure that when we go to, let's say, Flipkart or Amazon, take our products there, we are going to be successful. So this is the insight. All of us have captive customers. All of us spend a lot of money on performance marketing. Now, if you understand how your own customers are reacting to your campaigns, you can tune your performance marketing to understand what kind of TGs you're targeting, what kind of campaigns will work in the marketplace. The other aspect, I think, is security. For us, it's not just health information. We actually have terabytes of video because we do cameras. So we have terabytes of videos which you have captured, where the consumers have put on their homes, they have put on their kitchens. So it's very important for us to make sure that this data is not compromised. And it's not a cliche. Our brand cannot suffer a hijack of, like it happened a couple of years back. Amazon had an issue with in EU where the cameras got hijacked. We cannot even afford it. So from our architecture point of view, one is collecting data, second is looking at security. And even security, we need to understand data plays a big role in it, right? In the sense, you understand if you have the right, algorithms, you understand whether your system is going under a denial of access attack. So you build patterns. You know how a regular customer behaves, and you can quickly find out whether this is actually someone trying to storm your infrastructure. And IoT is very interesting. These devices stay at places, right? But they keep observing. So one of the anecdotes I wanted to tell you was, recently there was a big news about some Chinese satellite ship docking in Sri Lanka, and the news channels made a big hullabaloo about it. But unfortunately, a lot of big houses in India, when they make their smart products, they are using Chinese platforms. Now we are talking about millions and millions of monthly smart bulbs in your home, and I think we have enough cybersecurity experts here to understand if you have a bulb at a home which is in your home network, what kind of threat exposure you really have, right? So having said that, hopefully there are very few companies in India which build this entire IoT platform. I think HP, Amazon, and a couple of companies help us in doing that business. Lastly, I would like to tell that data also helps us in improving the performance of and the cost of the cloud infrastructure we have. So you look at if you collect data and instrument data and you use multiple regression models on it, you understand what's like, for example, OTTs have a concept of prime time. Interestingly, IoT also has a concept of prime time, believe it or not. So I can give you some insights. Indians love to watch their security cameras 8 to 9 in the morning and 6 to 7 in the evening. These are peak times for all of these things. So because we collected the data, the infrastructures we have built, we dynamically allocated in such a manner that we handle the peak times. Thank you.
Very, very interesting. And I think the 3 call-outs for me personally was the use of devices for capturing data, and not just for capturing data, but really using that data for some very specific cases, which will be very, very innovative in nature. The second was having a direct interaction with the customers themselves in terms of how they are using your products and whether the campaigns are running or not, because that's a clear driver for revenue growth or market share growth. But the last but not the least was also the fact that so much of data is getting captured, how best to keep it safe and secure. And the OT security part of it is something which is very critical. So those 3 takeaways, thank you Anup for sharing that. Because we are talking about IoT and we are talking about customer, I cannot but go to Vinod, and you are in a sector, aviation sector, which has got both sides. On one hand, there is a huge amount of instrumentation which helps you to gather huge amount of data, and that helps you to drive efficiencies. On the other hand, you have a large number of customers to deal with their own whims and fancies. So over to you, Vinod, for your perspective in terms of how analytics has helped you in your journey.
Okay. Thank you, Sudipta. Good evening, everyone. I think I have to pick a few queries from Anup also. And before I jump into that, see, airline is a very diverse stakeholder ecosystem. I think let's first understand that what it is. When I say diverse stakeholder ecosystem, it's about airlines, it's about airports, it's about the SaaS providers who are generating data for us. And it's also about the end customers. So it's also about the employees also who are there, who are consuming or using the data. So there are multiple stakeholders who are actually, part of this ecosystem. So airlines, last 2-3 years have been very, I would say, busy time for airlines from the data generation perspective, because most of these services have gone online or touchless. And some of those services we have to do because of the compliance, some of the services because the consumer behavior has changed, customer behavior has changed. So there's a lot of data. Summaries, there's a lot of data in airlines as we speak. Even the thermal cameras which are at the airports, and he was talking about it, there's tons of data which is getting generated. But the question is, what are you going to do with the data? Are you going to ship the whole data to the cloud and choke the cloud? Or are you going to do something at the edge? So that's why that edge use case will be very good for us. And you put 5G on top of it, 5G, 6G, 7G, whenever it comes. So I think those use cases, the solutions from that perspective, including the cyber security, data security will get sorted out. But one more element which is out about is the whole multi-channel. You are basically the data, whether it is for the consumer related data or even the engineering aircraft data. There is so much of data which gets generated from the aircraft to our systems. So you need to make sure that you process that information, process that data in a very quick manner, real-time manner, because you have very limited time between landing and takeoff. So it's not only the data which is facing, customer facing, it's also the data which is helping to enhance the customer experience. Because if the flight is delayed, you are actually indirectly impacting the customer. So the data is whether it is on the customer side. Customer side, the challenge is that you have lot of duplication of the data. So you need to clean up that data. So that is the one part of it. And then you need to make sure that if there is any efficiency to be built in, which is about the automation, digitization, you would have seen some of the news releases for updates for RFID technology, which we have, we're first in the industry to go after. The tech logs, which is technical logs, those are getting, digitized. So all those, digitization process, the journey from digitization to digital transformation, they're all actually connected. And some of them are actually directly helping on the efficiency part of it, because you can actually do it in a much efficient manner. But larger scheme of things is that how it is helping the value chain, how it is helping the business to take those decisions, how it is helping business to get into something where they can actually use the predictive nature of the data. Because we don't want to only react, we also want to move towards more proactive nature, and which will help business to get away from the Excel sheets and use the data or data-informed decisions. I think there are many use cases in airlines. For example, the whole route profitability. If I want to really get into the new route, what are the data from the social or from other channels will help business to take the decisions. Even the queuing at the airports. Some of the airports in the world has more than 40,000 IoT sensors today. So you can imagine how much data is floating at the airport. And airports want to use that data for the airlines because they can do a better queuing mechanism. They can use the better gate information. They can also use that data for your whole DigiYatra kind of programs, sell baggage drop kind of program, because the infrastructure at the airport for the kiosk is provided by the airport operators. So how do you collaborate with them? So data is there also. And they want to use the personalization, hyper-personalization for the people who are actually customers who are visiting. A person has basically affinity or the liking towards a particular brand. They can tell him that the mall is there right next. That's what the interest from the airports is also there. And last but not the least is the data security. I think airlines is a regulated industry, so each and everything you do, or PI data or cyber related, so it has to go through the process. And it's a constant, I would say, focus from the airlines as well to work with the partners. A lot of partners are in this room also, who are helping us to make sure that the data is secure. We'll take a pause here.
No, thank you very much, Vinod. And I think few things which I would kind of call out very clearly was that use of IoT for enhancing the consumer experience. I think that was one theme which came up, because if you are able to do that, then you can truly monetize that data. And then you can use that for not just driving growth, but also making sure that your consumers are loyal to you and they are kind of preferring you over others. So how do you improve the servicing part of it using data which is generated not just by humans but also by machines? Now in that same vein, because we are now going to switch to durables, right? And durables is also something similar where you want to enhance the experience of how you use a durable. And you also want kind of an edge computing there as well, because you would want some decisions to be taken whether the AC needs to be switched on or switched off immediately depending on whatever has been the condition and the programming which you have done. So would be great to hear from you, Sachin, because you have got a very diverse experience across multiple industries. But if you see what kind of trends you are seeing, particularly in the consumer durable space, where some specific use cases or applications are getting more traction than others, purely from a business outcome perspective.
Excuse me. Thanks everyone. Good evening. So we have a very different problem after I've heard Pawan, Vinod, who've got massive amounts of data. So today our issue is not massive amount of data. So edge computing, I wish that was the problem, but it is not. Our biggest issue has been when I started. So I started with Usha just about 3 years ago, was the organization of the data. That's where our journey started, right? 80-year-old organization, a lot of data was there. a lot of data was there on people's PCs and everywhere. So the biggest challenge was how did we organize? So we created a data lake, we created single source of truth, we took all the transactional data, we put all the masters, created a taxonomy, so on and so forth. So first laid that out. Obviously security was a big challenge, so we implemented that. Then we built dashboards. Now the dashboards were built on, so it's a distribution, so Usha works on distribution model, right? So we sell to distributors, they sell to retailers, and then retailers sell to consumers like all of you. So consumers is too far away from us. A lot of times we don't, unlike Vinod, we don't know who our consumers are. Right? We only used to find out about our consumers when something did go wrong and we would get a call for service. Right? And then it was all about post facto, how do you go and help them? Obviously now with the onset of social, we're getting a lot of that data upfront. So the key was to organize the data, then to build insights on top of that data. So we created dashboards, and we added AI and ML on top of it to give us insights. So the way we use data is in two ways, right? One, to help internal business to get them to understand where we need to focus on. So we started something we call Did You Know internally, obviously with the use of AI and ML on top of it, where we go in the data, create business insights, and then every Friday we push those insights out to the business leaders and say, did you know this is happening, or that is happening? And that was a huge take that has happened. First when it started, the biggest thing was, no, what you're saying is wrong, right? You need to look at it. Every insight used to be an hour-long conversation and trying to find out. And our perspective was, look, you're looking at it the wrong way. Our perspective is to highlight something which is there in the data. Either we change the process or we fix the data, or we fix the process to move on. So that turned out very well. Then we use the data in helping increase the sales, right? We go back to our distributors, we go back to our retailers, and kind of focus there to show them what is their bill rate, what's the turnover, where they're getting their customers from, what are the territories that are not covered, so on and so forth, right? Then, similarly with retailers, so we have a retailer app that we launched, where every retailer gets a point for 100 rupees of MRP. Right? So that gets them going. They see the data. They are able to see where they can use the data effectively, where the consumers are coming in from. We've started, and then we go obviously use social and see what are customers saying, right? We gather that, we put those queries, sentiments back into the data, do analysis and see how we can go ahead and use that effectively in terms of creating campaigns and so on and so forth. So that's marketing. And obviously, our existing customer base that we have, we obviously leverage that to go forward and do more as much as possible with that. So those are 2-3 different things how we use our data. We don't have IoT devices yet. So we're not getting direct consumer data. We've got some Bluetooth devices. We're moving in that direction, but we don't know that yet, how it's used. But obviously I've done that in the past in organizations. And like he was saying, it is very insightful to understand how consumers are using the equipment or the consumer goods so you can then take that information and then obviously start to see how you can add value to the consumers by looking at that data.
No, thank you very much. So I think this was an absolutely fascinating conversation, hearing from 4 very different sectors, but all talking about data and turning data into dollars. And I think we are right on time. And so thank you very much for patiently listening, and big thanks to all my fellow panelists for such a insightful discussions. Thank you very much.